Good afternoon, everyone. I am Romin Chamana. I'm a co-chair of the Professional Development Committee of the Houston Young Lawyers Association, along with Anna DiMaggio. Today, we are very excited to present to you five very distinguished and honorable judges who are going to share with you about judicial career path. Before we go and introduce our judges today, I just want to say a little bit about HYLA and its mission. The HYLA is a dynamic young professionals organization and specialty bar association. HYLA was formed in 1937 as the Houston Junior Bar Association and has a very rich tradition of community involvement and leadership. HYLA works in the Houston metro legal community. Its mission is to learn, lead, network, and serve. Each year, HYLA offers an exciting lineup of social networking events, CLEs, and leadership and volunteer opportunities. As you may know, today's event is jointly being organized by the Professional Development Committee and the Judiciary Committee of HYLA. The Professional Development Committee organizes events to assist young lawyers in developing professional skills, and the Judiciary Committee organizes programs focused on better understanding of the judiciary and its role in the practice of law. So now I want to let Anna DiMaggio to introduce our judges today and begin the session. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Roman. I also want to thank Christina Zuniga, who is the president of the Houston Young Lawyers Association. She's going to participate with us today too. And Lucy Kane, the executive director of HYLA, who also helped us put this event together. And of course, to all the judges who kindly agreed to be part of the panel discussion. My name is Anna DiMaggio. I'm a co-chair of the Professional Development Committee at the Houston Young Lawyers Association, HYLA. Both Roman and I graduated from the University of Chicago Law School, and we both now live in the Houston metro area. We're pleased to have a very diverse judiciary panel. The judges kindly agreed to share their experiences about the judicial career path. And I will start with the introduction of Judge Dena Palermo. She has been the U.S. Magistrate Judge for the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Texas since 2016. Judge Palermo was a partner at Vincent & Elkin and counsel at Mayor Brown. She was a co-chair of the White Collar Crime and Securities Enforcement Practice at Andrew Kurth. Thank you, Judge Palermo, for taking your time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. Judge Watson was elected judge of a Fort Bend County Court of Law in 2018. Judge Watson served as chief juvenile prosecutor for Fort Bend County, as a municipal judge for the city of Stafford, and an assistant district attorney for Fort Bend County. Since being elected judge, she presides over the Fort Bend County Misdemeanor Drug Court Program. Thank you so much, Judge Watson, for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Judge Wallace served as an assistant district attorney for 4 years before her unanimous appointment by the county commissioners to serve as an inaugural judge. She graduated from the University of Texas in Austin and has since then resided in Fort Bend County. She has been practicing law for over 13 years. Thank you, Judge Wallace, for being here with us and agreeing to serve the panel. Judge Morales was elected as judge of the Fort Bend County Court in 2014. Judge Morales oversees such matters as probate and guardianship, juvenile cases, civil litigation cases, condemnation proceedings, and even criminal misdemeanor cases. But most importantly, Judge Morales oversees Fort Bend County's only misdemeanor criminal mental health court. It's a special program designated to reduce recidivism rates among defendants with mental illnesses. All panelists have a very wide and diverse experience, and thank you so much, Judge Morales and all the panelists, for being here with us today. And I wonder, if you can share your experience about how you decided to become judges and how you ended up on the judiciary career path, that would be helpful for young lawyers and also JD candidates who are HYLA members. So was there a moment in time at which you realized that you wanted to become a judge, or was it a transitional process that naturally led you to the judiciary? Judge Palermo, I know that you started out as a law clerk. Did you know at the time of your law clerk experience that you would become a judge?
I never could have imagined that I would be a federal judge after being a federal law clerk, but I'll tell you that that's probably what did it to put me on the path. That was the best job until I got this job. This is the best job I ever had. But being a law clerk was a wonderful experience. I loved my judge. He treated us, like family, and the courthouse had, as we all know, being at the district level or at the trial court level, there's a lot of action going on in the courthouse. So it was fun, and there was a lot of young law clerks. So it was a very dynamic place to be, and a lot was going on. Of course, then when I went to the law firm, you don't quite get that same amount of action going on. And so, of course, I did what you had to do on the career path of being a lawyer at your law firm. But when I got more senior in my career, I decided I really did want to go back to being in the courthouse, and I wanted to be a judge. For me, I started looking into that right after I made partner at Vincent Elkins, but then I got pregnant and decided that having a family was going to put me on a different path. And so I stopped looking at that point, and I took time off. I'm one of those people who took time off. I took 8 years off to be home with my kids. And when I came back to working, I couldn't afford to make that transition to public service. So I went back into the law firm and continued to work as a lawyer until finally this job came open on magistrate judges. Judge Hanks was appointed from this position to replace Judge Atlas, who had taken senior status, and his spot had opened up. And I decided that was my chance to get on the federal bench, and I put in an application. So that's kind of the road to how I got here.
That's very impressive. Judge Watson, you have had 30 years or so of legal experience before you started serving as a judge. Has it ever occurred to you in law school that you would serve as a county judge in Fort Bend County?
Sure. So technically 28 years before serving as a judge. However, I have been licensed 30. And, I have to say, I guess I didn't realize it. When I was a district attorney out here, an assistant district attorney, I didn't know where my career would lead me. I knew I loved trial work and I loved prosecuting. And when I left the DA's office, I started representing clients, criminal defendants. I was the general counsel for labor union. I had a practice, a federal practice, as well as a state criminal practice and a civil practice, and realized that you don't go to trial as much if you're not in an agency like the DA's office and so on. And I was always trying to see how I could get back. In 2012, when I had 22 years experience, I ran for judge out here in Fort Bend County, came in second then, and continued to run until finally I made it. I was ready when I first ran. I had tried everything from a capital murder case to a municipal judge presiding over traffic tickets. And I knew by this time in my career, after appearing in front of a lot of great judges, that I would like to do that, and that I had the experience and I was ready. So for me, it was a combination of just lots of years of experience in the courtroom and in trial. And that's my story.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Another question I think that a lot of JD candidates and young lawyers are curious to learn is what helped you to become a judge. Judge Wallace, I think you had a journalism degree. And so could you speak a little bit about how your verbal and written communication skills from your studies to become a journalist, and probably how the storytelling that you mastered helped you in your career?
Yeah, all of that. You know, my degree is actually from the University of Texas at Austin, Hokum Horns, and it's actually in broadcast journalism. So I tell people all the time especially when I talk to kids, I do a lot of career day talks, and I told them I was on my way to be Oprah. Like that was my trajectory. I was headed to the studio to take over Oprah's job, and somewhere along the way, my dad said, well, why don't you go to law school? And I thought, okay, I'll see how that works out. But it actually parallels a journalist. The skills that you need in order to become a good lawyer, a good trial lawyer, are the same skill set that you need to become a good journalist. You need to be able, there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of writing, there's a lot of analyzing what you read and how you write. And that carries over into when you actually start practicing as a lawyer. I started off in civil litigation, so I take a lot of depositions, which means you're sitting, you're listening, you're asking questions, you're interrogating, you are analyzing documents and applying the law to the facts. So there were a lot of skills that I acquired with my journalism degree that carried over into me becoming what I think was a really good lawyer. And like I said, that reading, that writing, analyzing, and then on the bench, I have to listen. Some of the best judges that I practiced in front of were very good listeners. There's a whole class when we go to judge school. There's a whole class on listening, and that's an important skill, to be able to listen, to be able to decipher both sides of an argument, and then make a ruling and make a decision. So all of those skills that I acquired as a journalist carried over throughout my career as a lawyer, and then have also influenced the kind of judge that I have become and am still practicing as a judge.
Thank you, Judge Wallace, for sharing your experience. We have Judge McFarland here with us. Judge McFarland, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Sorry I was late. It's bad to be late to your own living room.
You're just in time. Judge McFarland is the state district judge and is the 5th generation Texan. Judge McFarland was elected to the Judicial District Court in 2008, and she received her undergraduate and law degree from Baylor University. She
National
attended
champions, thank you very much.
She graduated from the University of Oxford too, and she was a successful mediator and taught courses. Thank you, Judge McFarland, for taking your time to be with us today. So we're talking about the experiences that judges had that led them to serve as judges and help them in their career path. A lot of HILA members are young lawyers and JD candidates, and we're looking for any advice that judges could give to young lawyers, aspiring lawyers, and JD candidates who want to be judges or who are curious about the career path. And all our panelists have a very diverse experience, so we can talk for a long time, but we only have 1 hour. So I guess another question that young lawyers want to know is what judges expect from both lawyers and clerks. Judge Morales, would you like to say a few words? Do you have any expectations about from young lawyers or arguing in your court?
I'd love to touch on that subject. First off, preparation. I expect every lawyer who comes in front of me to be prepared. What bothers me more than anything is when a lawyer walks into my courtroom, or comes into the Zoom courtroom nowadays, and is completely unprepared to argue their motion or their case or whatever the subject may be that we're dealing with that day. what I hate more than anything, what bothers me more than anything, is having to wait around while they're shuffling through their papers to try to find a case or whatever it may be. Preparation is key to success in life in general. And if you're not prepared when you walk into a courtroom, how can you expect to succeed in your case and your argument? Some other things that I expect from young lawyers especially is an understanding of the decorum of the courtroom, respect. One thing that I've noticed over the years, as you stated, I was elected in 2014, and more recently in maybe the last couple years, is maybe a drop off of respect. And I think part of that might be a result of Zoom. Some lawyers show up in t-shirts for their Zoom hearing. I make sure I give instructions at the beginning of every Zoom hearing. I expect you to treat this just like any courtroom you would walk into anywhere in the state of Texas. And when you show up to a Zoom hearing in a t-shirt, that shows a complete lack of respect to the court. It shows that, to me, it also shows that maybe you don't really care about your case that much as well, if you're willing to come that way. I expect those basic things. I'm sure Judge Wallace and Judge Watson, we've had conversations about these things in the past. They expect pretty much the same thing. Preparation, respect, understand your case, know your case, and treat everybody in the courtroom with respect.
I'd add one thing to that too, Judge Morales. I think I agree on all of those. The other thing is, especially in civil cases, and to some extent in my criminal cases too, but I'm surprised when I say, hey, have you guys talked to each other before you got here? Like lawyer one, lawyer two, have y'all talked about the case at all? No. Okay, go take 15 minutes. I got a little conference room right in here. Go take 15 minutes. Y'all go talk about it, because that negotiation, that at least have you heard the other side's story. You'd be surprised how often that doesn't happen. And when I send them out, they come back in and they're like, well, Judge, you know what? We were able to work it out. Oh, great. Wonderful. So that taking the time, and that's a part of preparation, I think, but it's sometimes a part that some attorneys overlook, and they're so caught up in their side of the case that the parties don't actually talk to each other.
Yeah, if I could just chime in on that thought. In federal court, you have a requirement that you include a certificate of conference on your motion before you file it. And I find what a lot of lawyers do is they'll email each other like 5 minutes before they were planning on filing a motion saying, if I don't hear from you in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to file this and say that you're opposed. That does not satisfy your certificate of conference, attestation that you conferred or attempted to confer with the other side. And it actually, in my local rules, it actually requires you to speak to each other. And so emailing and letter writing, and lawyers like to get into these letter writing campaigns with a lot of gotchas, where you could come into the court and show me 15 emails where you're snipping at each other. Well, I don't want to read that. I don't want to see that. I don't want to know that you're being that disrespectful to each other. And I'm certainly not impressed by that. And neither one of you are going to win your motion on that basis. So yeah, conferring and actually talking to each other and being civil to everyone, each other, the court, and how about my court staff when I'm not in the courtroom? They're going to come back and tell me if you're not nice to them. So, you better be nice to them. So it's really important to remember that it's a small little family in that courthouse, and you want to be nice to everybody, and you should be professional and courteous to the other side. Even if they don't send that message back to you, you should always be in that role.
To chime into that as well, this morning, my coordinator commented today that she had an attorney call her yesterday and was extremely rude to her over the phone, to the point where he was yelling at her. Extremely inappropriate, absolutely. And at some point, that attorney and I will have a conversation about that. Right. Treat everybody in the courtroom with respect.
Judge McFarland, what do you expect from lawyers in your courtroom?
Well, the lawyers that have just spoken have absolutely spoken for me. When, you call a case before Zoom up to the bench on a motion hearing, and you call the case, and they come up, and they've probably been sitting in the courtroom for an hour while other cases were going on, and you see them introduce themselves to each other and shake hands. I'm like, oh my goodness, you don't even know who your opposing counsel is. Y'all have not talked. You've been in here for an hour where you could have gone in the hall, or I have 2 attorney conference rooms outside the courtroom. When I realized that, I asked them, have y'all met before? Well, no. I said, have y'all talked before this? Well, we email. I said, no. I don't mean email, text, letter. I mean, have y'all talked? Well, no. I said, then I do the same thing. Please go out into one of the attorney workrooms or go down to the cafeteria and have a cup of coffee, or you can come back in the jury room and we'll provide you coffee and sit down and talk about this issue. And I'm going to be here all day. I'm happy to, hear you. And I agree with you, Judge. Gosh, I don't know, probably 75% have either worked it out or only have 1 or 2 issues for you to rule on. So it's really foreign to me because I've been practicing, counting my years on the bench, for 43 years. And used to, you did. I mean, that was way before you had to do certificates of conference. You picked up the phone and called the opposing counsel and tried to work it out.
We didn't have email back in those days when we started practicing, so we couldn't email each other. You had to talk to people. You had to.
Exactly. Exactly right. And I think a lot of that's been lost. There's a lot of great things about technology, but I think a lot of the, if you have to sit down and have a cup of coffee across the table with someone, it's hard to be as mean, nasty, spiteful, cute, whatever, as it is on an email.
Right.
So I have the same complaint.
Right. The email takes out the personal feel. So people feel more freedom to say different things to each other. But I hope nobody had an attorney dressed as a kitty in their court these days. Judge Watson, what do you expect from the trial lawyers in your court?
I echo everything else that was said. Preparation is important. Respect for yourself. When you have respect in how you present yourself, how you dress, your etiquette, your courtroom etiquette, it shows in your representation of your client. It shows that you care about how your client is being represented. And it's an impression on the court. It's so very important. I do think that technology has taken a lot of the human aspects out of the practice of law. And quite frankly, the pandemic and all these Zooms are changing that as well. And I think we have to be conscious and fight against it because this is a discipline where human behavior, human interaction, humanity is important. We're not AI. I don't think we can do artificial intelligence in law. I hope not. Just about every other discipline is threatened by artificial intelligence. And I've queried that in my mind. Am I threatened by AI? Because it's coming. But seriously, we really have to fight to keep this humanity. What we do, whether it's criminal or civil, affects someone's lives. And we have to struggle to keep that. But members of the bar, yes, we watch. If you come in with, flip-flops on, I understand, I'm a woman, the heels can get uncomfortable, but there are heels that you can still put on and shoes that you can put on that are not so casual and you can still look professional. And I understand the Friday decor can, be relaxed, but you can still look very professional. There's golf outfits, quite frankly, that are professional that you can put on a relaxed Friday. and still present yourself properly to the court.
Thank you. Another question, which is similar to the previous one, that young lawyers all want to know, I'm sure, is what do judges expect from their law clerks? And I think that Judge Palermo, you currently serve as a co-chair of the summer intern and law clerk reception with the Southern District of Texas.
I love that party. Yeah, it's a party. I'm a party planner. I'm very good at that, apparently. You know, I started my career when I graduated from law school as a law clerk. I've learned so much more now, and I wish I'd known then what I know now. But I think that all judges expect from their law clerk excellent research skills and good writing skills. And it's amazing to me how many people come out of law school without having good writing skills. Most of the young lawyers can do research because it's so much easier on the computer, although I haven't quite figured out how to master the research on the computer. But the young people coming out of school, they've got that down. They can find the cases, but a lot of times putting it into a format that makes it usable for me is much more difficult. And so I think that all students and all lawyers need to work on their writing skills constantly, because we communicate in writing, and you know, a lot of what we're doing is written work product. I mean, I had no idea when I thought I wanted to be a lawyer when I was 14 years old. It was from watching TV, not from anything written. It was just, you know, on television, you saw those lawyers that made it look glamorous. And I thought, oh, that's what I want to do. And there's a lot of not glamorous part of our job, which is reading, the researching, the digging, the deep digging in and learning how to present. And so I rely on my law clerks to present to me what, you know, the parties aren't necessarily presenting. So I've got to know what are the real issues, what is the law going both ways, and which way is the better way for me to go. Because in a lot of instances, there are opinions going this way and there are opinions going that way. So you could go in either direction, and you need to know what are the better reasoned opinions and what is supporting that, so that you can make the decision that you're comfortable with. And, you know, that's all what I look to my law clerks to do. So they come, they sit in on all the hearings that they want to sit in. And I do mediations also. As a U.S. magistrate judge, we provide a mediation service to all the litigants in our court. And so you can have a case mediated in front of a federal judge. And so my law clerks can sit in and watch all of that, but their work is really the behind the scenes stuff. And so, you know, need them to have those skills.
Judge McFarland, what is your expectation from your law clerks?
Well, I seem to only get 1Ls. Occasionally I'll get a 2L. And my coordinator from the beginning said, don't let 1Ls come. They don't know anything. And I said, well, since we're not paying them, they're better than nothing. And, you know, really, they're real good because they really want to learn. They get to sit in, they watch trials, they hear the staff in the back talk, which I wish I had known as a young lawyer, even an old lawyer, before I took the bench. I knew they talked, and I knew to always be courteous to the staff, but I had no idea how much your staff influences your attitude about an attorney. Just like Judge Morales said, when someone is rude to one of my clerks or coordinator, they may not tell me, but somebody else on the staff will tell me. And that's just a, you know, critical mistake. But all those law clerks learn that as soon as they are in there, because they're in the back with the staff, they're with you. And writing skills are important, reading. Yeah, one thing I've found very interesting, and I tell young lawyers, please don't do this. You know, one of the codes of professionalism is not to mislead the tribunal. And they will quote a case, and I may have listed it in their briefing. And then when I have the law clerks read the cases, to be quite frank, so I don't have to, and to tell me, they'll say, Judge, this case doesn't say what that lawyer said out in court. It doesn't say that at all. And I tell young lawyers, please don't do that. The look of shock and disappointment on my law clerk's face to know that you have misled the court and what you said is terrible. It's terrible for you. It's terrible for the court. And it is so disheartening for a bright young law student clerk that wants to do it right. So I think it's, you know, they help me more than I help them. They're fun to have around. I said, one of the best surprises I had when I took the bench was law clerks and the enthusiasm that they bring and the freshness, and then, you know, have them maybe come back even when they've finished law school, sometimes when they're getting ready for the bar and maybe work, and I get to swear them in, I get to do the weddings, I get to hold the babies, and it just becomes a family. And it's a delight because I have all these young lawyers now. One of them was in front of me last week in a Zoom hearing, and I couldn't believe I performed his wedding after he graduated from law school. He came to me originally as a 1L. He is a Baylor Law School graduate, but I do sometimes let other people clerk for me. And you know, he's just turned out to be a great young lawyer. His children are now 5 and 7. That's just, I knew him when he was a 1L. And so to build a kind of different generation family that you're close to has been a real delight. And a lot of times I'll take more than one because then they feed off of each other and they start making contacts in their peer group that will last. They'll, and I do bring them from other schools, obviously. And so that's been a benefit, I think, to them and to me.
Thank you. Judge Wallace, do you keep in touch with your former clerks? Do you encourage them to keep in touch?
Actually, I do. So ours are, our terminology is a little different. It's the same concept that I refer to mine as interns. It's the same thing. But yes, I do. And I actually was on the phone with one of my former interns a few weeks ago. She moved from Texas back to Florida. And so she just touched base and wanted to get some referrals. And I always tell my law clerks or interns, call me if you need anything, because if I don't know how to do it, or if I don't know somebody directly, I can put you in touch with somebody that can help you. And so it may not be something that's related to anything that they necessarily did in my court, but if I can be helpful to them in the future and put them on the path to whatever it is that they want to do, then I think I should be helping them do that. And that comes through establishing relationships. So if you're in a clerking position, if you're doing an internship somewhere, establish relationships with the person, with your supervisor, with your judge, with the attorney that you're working with, whomever it is, if you're in the DA's office, because those relationships will really dictate more of what you do in your career than sometimes the content of what you learned in that setting. I have an intern who interned with me in the DA when I was a prosecutor in the DA's office, and I was in a court. My court partner ended up, well, she didn't end up, we knew she was going to have the baby. She had the baby. She had her baby and she left on maternity leave, which meant that the entire court caseload fell on me. And that intern at that time, he stepped up and he started doing all of the things that the prosecutor does for cases in a court. And I told him later, I was like, you put down on your resume that you were an acting prosecutor, and I will sign off on that. And if they call and they ask me about that as a reference, I will tell them that you did everything a prosecutor did in that court. So those experiences, those relationships that you develop in your role as an intern, they will matter. Either hurt you, they can hurt you, or they can be a benefit to you later on as you move through your career in ways that you may not represent or that you may not really appreciate at the time.
So it's almost like you are mentoring your interns.
Absolutely, yeah.
Judge Watson and Judge Morales, do you have any mentoring style and a relationship with your interns?
I'm going to echo some of the things that I've already stated here. Judge Palermo, especially, you've got to have a good writing style. You've got to know how to write. You got to know how to research, all of that. I'm not going to repeat everything that's stated here. One other thing, though, is be ready to learn, because not only are you going to be up there watching trials, hearings, I'm going to be asking you questions like, what did you think? What do you think about this point of the law? Let's talk about that further. Why don't you research that? Come back to me and we'll sit down and we're going to really go over that in depth. They're going to learn a lot with their time when they spend their time during their summer or fall or whenever it is they intern with me or clerk with me. They're going to learn a lot. And in fact, I always tell them when they come work for a county court here in Fort Bend County, we have 7 different jurisdictions of law. I said, if you don't know what area of law you want to practice, you'll figure it out in my court. Because we do civil litigation, we do criminal, we do juvenile, probate and guardianship. I mean, we touch pretty much everything except family law. You get a wide array, you get a wide area of the law, you get experience with everything. To me, as if I was a 1L, I couldn't ask for more.
Excellent. And I agree totally. I won't repeat everything. A lot of times I do tell my interns, we call them interns, your internship is going to be what you make it. Sometimes they ask, well, should I have a schedule? And what if I have finals? I said, look, I'm not going to make you come, but the more you come, you will learn. And if you have finals, obviously your studies come first. But more importantly, I will dialogue with you, ask questions. They will have to write, they will have to read, and they will have to also be assertive. They can't just sit in the corner and expect for me as a judge to spoon feed. They're going to have to also know that they're there to learn and to be aggressive about it.
Before we change on to the next subject, I just want to put in a plug here. So in the federal system, we actually have hired law clerks, just for those younger lawyers who know. We hire law students right away, but I tend to hire people who have practiced for a couple of years, because I think that, that having practice gives you a lot of practical judgment and is more helpful to me than having someone straight out of school. But I hire both ways. But in the federal system, we hire law clerks for either a 1 or a 2 year position, and the pay fluctuates based on whether you're straight out of school or whether you have other experience beforehand. And so that's a permanent position, permanent in the sense that most of them are term clerks for 1 year or 2 years, but it is a full-time job. And so, but we also have interns in the summer, which are the unpaid positions. Some people do internships during school. I haven't had much of those at all. And I've had some summer interns. This year, actually, I've had the most apply to me than ever. And I think it's because my law clerk was pretty aggressive in going out and soliciting people to actually put in applications. So I have more interns this year than I've ever had before. But either way, whether you get a law clerk term position for a year or 2, or if you get an internship, it really is a very valuable experience and a wonderful networking opportunity with the court and with other interns, other law clerks, and just knowing your way around the courthouse. One of the most valuable things for me when I left my clerkship 40 years ago was that I knew my way around the federal courthouse. I knew how to get things done in the federal courthouse. Didn't have that same experience in the state courthouse. That's why I was constantly trying to get into state court. But, being an intern or being a law clerk really does give you that inside view on how to get things done.
Thank you. Outside from the practical experience and the relationships that you build while clerking for a judge, do you recommend any books or academic readings for your law clerks?
Read the code. I know that's not fun reading, but a basic foundational understanding of, particularly like if you're talking about the penal code, what are class A, class B misdemeanors? What's the range of punishment? What are the typical charges that you see coming through the court? and what are the elements of those charges. You know, if you're talking about for civil cases, you know, my interns spend a lot of time reading motions for summary judgment because we get a lot of those. So what's the basis for the rulings on motion for summary judgment? Where did those come from? And a familiarity with the law surrounding those type of civil procedure cases. Things like that. If you know that kind of thing walking in the door as an intern or a law clerk, I guarantee you the judge that you are clerking for or working for is going to be jaw on the desk like, wow, like, okay, you're serious about this. And that doesn't require, you know, a whole lot of research in terms of, you know, it doesn't require you having to purchase a lot of books. You can go to any law library and pop open an O'Connor's, and all of that information is right there at your fingertips. So a base knowledge of some of those more common motions and the more common elements of crimes that your judge will be dealing with will give you a great foundation and be a good start for you.
That sounds like good advice. I guess I have one more question, which personally interests me. What in your opinion is the most interesting trend in law in 2021, other than coronavirus, I guess?
What's an interesting trend?
I
Maybe
think
20.
the trend that we've all shared and we're sharing right now is going to electronic working. And so when the coronavirus hit a year, I stopped working in my office on March 17th was the last day I was in my office. And I have been working from home since March 17th of 2020. And I have done everything on an electronic platform. Now we have moved to Zoom in the federal court system, but we've tried several different platforms before we got there. And, you know, for some people, some of the older judges who were not that electronically proficient, transitioning to a complete electronic workload was very difficult for them. For me, when I got out of baby judges school in 2016, they taught us to do everything electronically. And so when I got to the bench in Houston, I wanted to do everything electronically. The other judges were not. And I wasn't trying to force the other judges on or the other magistrate judges. A lot of the district judges were, but the other magistrate judges were doing everything by paper. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do this by paper. I'm going to do this electronically. So switching to a complete electronic base at home for me was an easy transition, and for others it wasn't. And so I think that trying to make your practice work on an electronic platform has been challenging for a lot of people this year. Being motivated to continue working even when you're not in the office has been challenging for a lot of people this year. But to me, a lot, even though it takes some of the humanity out of it, some of the stuff that we do electronically is great. And I think that we're going to see it stay. For me, I have cases where you have people from all over the state or all over the country. So you have a hearing where everybody appears electronically. It's easier to me anyway to do everybody electronically than to do some people electronically and some people in person. It's a little harder to manage the logistics like that. And so I think we're going to see some of this electronic media continue even after we get beyond the pandemic. And we're going to see that there's going to still be a lot of Zoom hearings or Zoom meetings or other things where we're doing it electronically and having less face-to-face, although face-to-face is going to come back for certain parts which we can't, help. We will have in-person trials and you will have certain things be done in person, but a lot of things that could be done over the Zoom are going to continue to be done over the Zoom, in my opinion.
I want to echo Judge Palermo's comment. I had a motion for summary judgment hearing this morning, and after the hearing had concluded, one of the attorneys asked me, "Are we going to continue with Zoom?" I said, "Absolutely. I see no change whatsoever moving forward." Now, bench trials Jury trials, very different. Those will go back to in-person very soon. I can promise you that. But when it comes to motion for summary judgment, default, probate, simple probate prove-ups, even juvenile hearings, they're going to remain Zoom almost indefinitely. I don't see that changing at any point in the near future. It's great. Most attorneys that I've spoken to really enjoy Zoom. They can practice from anywhere. Sorry, go ahead, Judge Watson.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to echo that somewhat and also give a little different perspective. As far as a trend in 2021, obviously the electronic court is what is the big trend, but hopefully the respect for the judiciary still remains. And quite frankly, not only the respect, but the threat, so to speak, of the courtroom, the courthouse, the court proceedings on certain people who need it. Specifically, I'm speaking of our juveniles. That still continues. I think it's more challenging to have that impression in a Zoom hearing as opposed to the fear of going in the courtroom and seeing that person with the black robe and seeing that bailiff over there with his gun and his bailiff uniform and having the intimidation that I like so that you will not appear again if you're a juvenile, that you won't have the comfort level of being in your living room. I don't want my juveniles too comfortable because I want them to be so impressed that they don't come back. And so I'm hoping that we can, in 2021, even though we're using electronics and it definitely has its convenience in a lot of areas of law, but in some areas, specifically juvenile, as well as some criminal defendants, I think we still need to go back to in-person and we need to go back to the courtroom. I remember I was a criminal defense attorney for some time. I would have clients, NFL players, 6'6", 290 pounds. And the first thing they would tell me, I'm not going in that courtroom without you. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm half your size. But that is how intimidating going in that courtroom is. They needed the lawyer to speak for them. They needed the representation. It was not a comfortable place to be. So the challenge for all of us is to, yes, impart justice as much as we can within the realms of this pandemic, which is very challenging, but understand that there is an importance, a respect of going in that courthouse that I think is necessary for justice.
Here is my motto. Oh, the news on the TV is frightful, but working in your pajamas is delightful. But I miss the courtroom too. And so sometimes I just go to the courtroom to do Zoom hearings, especially if I need to be up there for something else. But I agree. I think hopefully I'll be able to try jury trial in May. And I think we will be back to semi-normal by the fall. I had my coordinator called earlier and said that someone had a preferential setting on June 7th, but they had fallen and broken their hip and they were just trying to recover. And then I guess state bar must be the week of the 14th. And so I said, you know, he gets a continuance. Anybody this summer that doesn't feel like they feel comfortable going to trial, they get a continuance. In the fall, it will change. But I think, you know, you've got people that they're going to be witnesses and of course, attorneys that are young and haven't gotten the vaccine yet, or maybe they've been working from home and they really haven't gotten everything done that they intended to because of issues with COVID and depositions and children trying to learn from home while you're there. So that's sort of my motto. You need a continuance between now and September, it's done, anybody. Because whether it's trying to get witnesses there or the attorneys don't feel like they're ready because it's been an unusual year, then you get one. Anybody wants to go to trial, I'm going to try to get you a trial. So, but you know, come the fall, hopefully we'll be back to whatever the new normal is.
Well, we call that in court for Judge McFarland is, I call it my COVID grace. I mean, I extend a little bit of COVID grace. Now we have two lines of grace. You get COVID grace or you get the snowpocalypse grace. Everybody gets a little covering of that in how I'm dealing with attorneys and with the defendants. But as in the Bible, you know, your grace will run out. And so I'm kind of like you, where that grace only goes for so long, and then we're gonna have to get back to the strains and the restraints of court and the modicum of preparation and showing up ready to go. So got that grace going for right now. Though they're taking advantage of it too.
Thank you for all your insights. I think this is very helpful and interesting for young lawyers to hear. I have to announce today's course number for CLE credits. It's 174116309. And I have to announce it 3 times, so please bear with me. 174116309, and the third time 174116309. So this is your CLE course number. And now maybe someone has questions. You are more than welcome to ask the judges the questions. You just have to raise your hand.
And I think there's one in the chat, but I have one question before we get to that one, if that's okay. Each of you spoke about relationships with your interns or your law clerks and the mentorship you've provided to them. And I'm curious if each of you could speak to someone who mentored you along the way, or a relationship that was particularly valuable in your career path and getting to the bench.
I'll start. When I was at Vincent & Elkins as a baby lawyer, just having done my federal clerkship, I had a case set for trial in state court that I inherited from somebody else who bailed on it. And so I had no state court experience. As I had said, I was familiar with the ins and outs of federal court, but had no idea how to do state court. So the head of my department, Harry Reesner, roped one of the lawyers from the tort group. I was in the business litigation group. Roped one of the tort lawyers, Craig Smizer, into going to trial with me in Davy West's court, for those of you who are old enough to remember him. And so I tried my first case with Craig Smizer second chairing me, although I would say he was more like the lead because I was a baby lawyer and didn't know anything. And he has mentored me ever since. So that was back in 1987 when I tried that case. And I have been leaning on him to mentor me up until the time that I applied for this job. As a matter of fact, he's the one who told me about the opening and said, you need to go apply for that job. And so he has been a resource for me. And, you know, there's been multiple other lawyers who I've worked with, who I've mentored, others who have mentored me. But in terms of one constant throughout my entire career, it would have been him. And of course, you know, he's mentored a lot of other lawyers, and he's, you know, gotten a lot of rewards that you get from mentoring others. But I would say for me, he's been the probably critical one person who has mentored me for my entire career.
Judge Palermo, my husband actually works at Smizer Kaplan in Veselka with Craig, so I'm excited to tell him that.
Tell him.
I will.
Yeah.
For me, I can say, real quickly, for me, I can say it's been so many people that it's hard to say one person. But as an attorney, I will say it would have been Robert Alton Jones, who was a federal practitioner and who tried with me my first federal case, and Judge David Hittner's court, for which I did get a not guilty as a defense lawyer, which was huge. but he actually mentored me throughout my federal practice. And as a lawyer, I would give him that. But I've had so many different mentors and so many different disciplines to get me to this point. We would go on forever. And I would say, get a lawyer mentor, but don't be afraid to get mentors in other disciplines as well. They can still help you in your career as a lawyer.
I was just going to say similar. There were a lot of different mentors in different areas, but the one that stands out was when I was a law student at South Texas, and I clerked with the Honorable Levi Benton in the 215th District Court in Harris County. And Judge Benton was amazing. His temperament as a judge was what really stood out for me, just sitting in his courtroom as a law clerk and watching these attorneys just go at it and really just kind of resort back into, almost childlike argument. And he would just soak it all in. And he was always very mild and mannerable in how he dealt with them. And then we would go back in his chambers later and I would ask him, they were just out there just acting up. And he's like, yeah, yes, they were, So just Judge Benton was a phenomenal judge to learn from. And what started out as a 1 semester job, I think I renewed that like 2 times over because I was just like, I love being here and I love learning from you. Can I stay? And he was like, absolutely, as long as you want. So that was a great clerkship that turned into me when I was offered the position to be a judge, just kind of thinking back on that and saying, you know what, after watching Judge Benton do it for so long, I can do that too. So, and there were many other lawyers and other professionals that I encountered along the way. So what I would say to a young lawyer or even to a JD candidate, don't be afraid to ask someone to be your mentor. They may not consider themselves a mentor quality or a mentor type person, but just ask them, hey, can I keep your number? Can I ask you questions? Will you help me? And I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they will say yes. But they may not have considered themselves or even thought to offer that to you. So be the one to ask for it and be assertive and aggressive in seeking out mentors because they will make the difference. Every step of your career, they will make a difference.
Thank you, Judge Wallace. We are approaching almost the end of this session today. I just want to ask one more question. What advice would you like to give to young lawyers or the law students who are considering having a judicial career in future?
Be excellent. Your reputation is everything. You need to have, a good reputation so that people know you as honest, trustworthy, and a smart, good, hardworking lawyer. And that will go a long way to getting you a judicial career. Got to start with the fundamentals.
Be prepared to put in the work. There's a lot of work ahead of you before you can get to becoming a judge.
And I would add to that one word is integrity. And if you have integrity as an attorney, as a practicing attorney, that will go far. And as a prosecutor, I used to always say, I'm going to tell you no, but I'll say it with a smile. Be kind, have integrity. And just like Judge Palermo said, your reputation is paramount in this field.
And good trial skills help as well. You have to know the rules of evidence. And also, as Judge Wallace has said, have an ability to listen to both sides.
Don't leave your common sense at the door.
Sure. Thank you so much, judges, for being with us today. It's already 1 p.m. and we really, really cannot appreciate enough for giving us your time today. And Anna, do you have anything else to add?
Could I just bother everyone for 1 second? I'm going to take a quick photo if that's okay. And then,
sure.
and then I promise I'll let you get on with your day. Okay. So I'll give us a countdown. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you so
And
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Will you
Bye-bye.
send us the picture?
Yes,
Yes,
please send the picture.
send everyone the picture.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for your
Thank
insights.
you. Thank
Bye.
you so much, Anderson.
Good luck,
Bye.
guys.